Hello people of Earth, this is Dan Lockhart of the Rider Valkyrie Dan Lockhart YouTube channel, and in this episode, Season 6, Episode 6, I'm going to show you my video editing process. I said in my previous video that I use Wondershare Filmora 13 for my video editing for the most part. I also have an Adobe subscription for Adobe Premiere. Once you open the software to get started, the first thing that you have to do is you have to import your media. That's what I'm doing in this screen right here. The files that I'm importing are the intro and outro, which is a standard thing for my videos, and I'm also importing an introduction that I did for this Season 6 Episode 5 video, and all the GoPro recorded files. Once I have enough of the imported files to get started, I just drag the first file down to the timeline. You can see the red thing there with the little pair of scissors below it. That's called the playhead, and the scissors are used for doing trimming on clips. Filmora is feature rich, and there's a couple different ways that you can do things given the tool set that they have. You can use control commands to do things, or you can use the icons in the toolbars. In this segment right here, you can see that I'm deleting out part of my fake introduction. The raw footage in all my shots rarely has the color content that I want, so I have a preset that I created for myself, and I apply that on all my shots, and that's what I did right there. You can see the color kind of came up. Like every good YouTuber or Photoshopper, Control-Z is my friend. That undoes the thing that you just did. You can see on the right side of the screen here, there's a lot of different controls that you can do for lighting, color, that kind of thing, contrast. There's just an awful lot you can do with Filmora. One of the things that I struggled with in my earlier days of video editing was trying to figure out how GoPro came up with their naming conventions for the files that are recorded on the camera. It was really confusing to me. I don't know if other people have the same issue, but man, it probably took me a few weeks to finally figure out what was going on with that stuff. GoPro 12 is able to record larger files for an extended period of time, and so you get this performance tip warning that comes up in Wondershare when you try to bring in a file that's what they consider to be too big. After I get my intros in there and I've told you what I'm going to do, then I go do it. And this is the part where I actually started importing files from the ride. There's a bunch of stuff from the beginning of it before I put my helmet on that I didn't want the viewers to see, so you got to kind of play through that a little bit and then do a clip, a trim on the clip. once I've come to an actual start of the video that I want to produce for the viewers, then I figure out what I'm going to do with all the footage that I had. In this case, I decided to stack one of the camera video recordings on top of the other one, and then I did a thing where I did a mask, which allowed me to trim that frame down, that window down to half of the screen size for each camera, stacked them on top, and then let it rip from there. Here I was trying to figure out what I did with the footage from one of the cameras that I wanted to do the import on. The interesting thing about this is once you do your import, you don't have to move it down to the timeline, and you could do a preview in the media frame up there. Once you've got it imported, you could see what that footage is itself before you actually drag it down to the timeline. Since I have two camera recordings that I'm using here, I have to synchronize those recordings, and the easiest way that I've found to do it is that you can see in the audio section where you have these peaks, and for me, when I start the engine on the motorcycle, you can see these pretty big peaks pop up, and then you could just shift your footage around on the timeline to get both cameras to the same synchronized spot, and that seems to work pretty well for me. You can see here where I had to pull the top track over just a few seconds and get those peaks lined up for the engine start up. Once I have the two tracks lined up, then I can go back and trim out whatever it is that I don't want the viewer to see. Here you can see in the audio track timeline that I've got both the video tracks lined up fairly well. I mean, it's good enough to go ahead and do trims on the video wherever I wanted to actually start the video. And where I wanted that to start was just kind of right before the motor started. If I'm using this stack process, once I get the first video for each camera aligned, then I can just drop the other tracks in for that camera right behind them. and then it'll stay synchronized throughout the whole video. I was in software development for quite a long time, and what I learned in software development was save your work, save often, save well. You can also set up the Filmora to do its own automatic backups. If something happens, like your system crashes while you're working, it will have a backup of that video. You can set that up, or you don't have to use that, I believe. I leave it on for me because I've ended up using it before. Power goes off, something happens, you can bring it right back in. Here you can see that I used my own personal preset for the colors. It's pretty amazing. I forgot how, if you wanted to use that same preset or that same effect, or that adjust the audio level to exactly like another track, I forgot how to do the copy effect function. I'll show you that later on. That comes in pretty handy too. And here I'm trying to figure out, I thought I had another file that had more front-facing footage, but it turns out I didn't. Either the camera shut off because the battery was gone, or I inadvertently deleted that clip. I can't remember. But this is what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to figure out exactly where my end footage is for each camera. Since everything is synced up fairly well, I decided that just coming back into the neighborhood, I didn't need that footage on both cameras, so I just go ahead and trim it at the end right there, and that will be the end of the recorded GoPro footage that I used. It took me a couple minutes to figure out that the footage that I was looking for didn't exist. So, there it is. Filmora has hundreds of different transitions that you can use to transition from one scene to the next. I like to keep it simple and use like a dissolve. Sometimes I'll use a box spin or box close, box open, that kind of thing. Adds a little bit of interesting perspective when you're changing from scene to scene, but I like the dissolve. It works fairly well. It took me a while to realize that if you wanted to apply a transition to several different clips, you just select all those clips and then hit the plus button on the transition, and that'll apply those transitions, whatever they are, from clip to clip and multiple clips. I used to do them one at a time, and I thought, man, there's got to be a better way. The use of the audio track can add interest to the video, in my opinion. Obviously, in this section of the video, what I wanted was for the viewer to hear the engine as I was getting onto the highway, to hear that motor rev up, and I thought it added quite a bit to the video. It gets me excited anyway. Another cool feature of Filmora that I use quite a bit is called speed ramping, where you can change the speed of a clip and you can create your own ramp up or down. You can customize that, or you can use the presets. If you look in the top right hand corner, you can see all the speed ramping presets. I used to have to break the clips up, and if I wanted one to go a little bit faster, then I'd have to cut the clips up and then just adjust that clip for twice the speed or 3 times the speed. And here, this is where I'm showing you that I forgot how to do the copy effects function. The good thing about Filmora is there's tons of YouTube videos, instructional tutorials out there, just everywhere. And not just from Filmora, but also users of the software. Learning how to use the editing software is one thing. That's half the battle. The other half of the battle is figuring out how YouTube does its process. If you use music in your videos like I do, you can use free tunes that they have out there on YouTube, but sometimes you'll get a licensing conflict, and then they'll actually mute that second section of your video. So I decided to go with Tune Pocket, because all the tunes that I can get on Tune Pocket I have the license for, and I don't have to worry about YouTube scrubbing out some section of the audio in my video, which used to really piss me off. But this works a whole lot better to use Tune Pocket. Everything I have, I don't have to worry about it. My channel's been whitelisted by Tune Pocket, and I have 0 copyright conflicts now. When I select the music for my video, I listen to it ahead of time in a separate media player window, and then once I find something that I like, then I can just drag it onto the audio timeline of my video, and that's what I'm doing here. I like to have a couple seconds of overlap from tune to tune, so you can put the audio tracks in a different track above or below and adjust them that way. Also, each audio track you can do a fade in or a fade out. You can adjust the level of the audio track also. The other nice feature in Filmora is that once you get your audio set up out there, if you want an audio track to more or less dominate the audio in a particular section, you can use a tool called audio ducking. And what audio ducking does is that whichever track you put the audio ducking into, you can control the volume of the other tracks. It was really nice if you have multiple audio tracks in there, and say like you do a narration. Well, you don't want your narration to be overwhelmed by the music audio if you want the music playing in the background. If you use audio ducking, it will automatically adjust for all that. You can change the volume levels of all the tracks that are recorded on a percentage basis. I usually use around 50%. When I add music audio to my videos, I try to keep the audio theme consistent in the music. Like if I'm using rock, I'll search all my Tune Pocket tracks for rock, or you can search by cinematic, or there's certain keywords that you can use to search by. But I try to keep those themes consistent to the video. Tune Pocket has thousands and thousands of songs, and you just search them online, and you just can download them to your computer, and then, like I did here, I'm pulling them into my videos. Filmora also has a tool that can stretch your music video to fit your timeline. Say like you have a music track that you're adding to your video, and it's not quite long enough to go to the end of where you want that music to end. You can actually stretch that track. It'll analyze the track, and it'll copy it and adjust it and put it in the right place, and it's a really nice feature. You can see two white frames on the display of the player, which indicates the safe zones for you to add your footage into. So when you're creating your footage, or when you're doing your edits, you can see how far each window is going to come out, and the white frames, like I said, are the safe zones. Here you can see where I'm analyzing where I might want to do a overdub, a narration overdub. You can see that on the right hand side of the screen. After I did the overdub, I have the auto ducking turned on, and I have it set at 50%. When I create a video, I've usually watched all these video clips a number of times. You have to get a feel for everything, and by the time I get to the end where I'm ready to export, I'm just ready to be done with it. You watch these things so many times, it's just like you just get sick of it. Let's wind this up. When I did season 6, episode 5 that day, I recorded the videos starting at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30 I think it was, and I did the edit for that video the rest of the day, and I was ready to do the upload to YouTube around 9 o'clock that night. When I use my GoPro Max 360 camera, it usually takes me about twice as long to edit a video because you have to do a pre-edit process with the 360 footage. You can upload 360 footage, but that's a whole nother thing. That's why I have Adobe Premiere, because Filmora cannot handle that 360 footage like Adobe Premiere can. But I do like doing 360 videos. That 360 camera is so versatile. It's amazing. Things I wish people would have told me when I first started using Filmora is you can lock the tracks where it prevents you from inadvertently dragging something or deleting something. I can't tell you how many times when I first started using Filmora, I deleted something and it shifted everything on the timeline, and windows were out of place and the audio was out of place, and it was just, what was I doing to myself? But you can see where the bars, there's diagonal bars across the video timeline. That means that track is locked and you can't do anything to it. You can't adjust it. It's locked and it's perfect. And that is a feature that I wish I would have known way before I discovered it. In this part of the edit, I was shifting between two video timelines, and I was doing 10 seconds per clip and just going back, alternating back and forth from the forward-facing camera on my helmet to the camera facing me. Just making a review of that. Again, on the right hand side you can see the speed ramping function. I used a custom one that I made for myself here. You can drag that bar up and down, and however much faster or slower you want the clip to go. It's a really nice feature. They have presets or you can make your own custom one. Once you got everything all set up the way that you want it in your video, you're ready to finalize it. You have to do the export function, and export usually takes about twice as long as the display time when you're doing the edit. Then you do the upload to YouTube, and you got to let that bake for a little while because sometimes it takes maybe 2 or 3 hours for it to process a 4K video, 15-minute 4K video.